Good afternoon, everybody. This is surely no ordinary time. Actually, that's the title of one of my favorite books. Doris Kearns Goodwin wrote a book about Eleanor and Franklin Roosevelt and a history of the Depression and World War II that defined a generation. This pandemic, the economic collapse it engendered, and the protests against yet another murder of an unarmed black man by the police will define our generation. I know this is a time of tremendous fear and anxiety. People are worried about their survival, whether it's COVID-19, job loss, mortgage foreclosure, eviction. Compounding these fears is the murder of George Floyd by the police in Minneapolis. As some of you know, I grew up in St. Paul, which is across the river from Minneapolis. And it's particularly painful to me that this murder happened in my home state and that the peaceful process devolved into vandalism there. You know, there were two black families at my elementary school. And from the time I was in first grade to about fourth grade, my younger brother and I were frequently waylaid by white boys on the way home from school who called us nigger and started fights. And I'm a history teacher by profession. And I know that one of the reasons that I wanted to study history was to try to discover why white people hated us so much. This is a profoundly racist country. And black and brown people have suffered centuries of discrimination. My own people have endured 250 years of slavery and 100 years of brutal oppression. Only in my lifetime have black folks across the country been able to vote, sit in the front of the bus, go to unsegregated public schools, dine in hotels across the country. Let me speak to the young people of a variety of backgrounds who have participated in the protests or the vandalism. As a teacher, I feel the need to praise the young people who've been involved in nonviolent demonstrations and to condemn the looters. We have to acknowledge that our great country is not perfect. We have to call out the endemic racism and the routine, everyday murders of unarmed black and brown people by the police. Let me say some of their names. George Floyd, Minneapolis, Minnesota. Harith Augustus, Chicago. Rakia Boyd, Chicago. Laquan McDonald, Chicago. Quintonio LeGrier, Chicago. Toni McDade, Tallahassee, Florida. Breonna Taylor, Louisville, Kentucky. Atatiana Jefferson, Fort Worth, Texas. Ahmaud Arbery, Brunswick, Georgia. Trayvon Martin, Sanford, Florida. Sandra Bland, Waller County, Texas. But we have to understand that the looting and the vandalism provide ammunition to those who want to marginalize, discredit, or diminish our critique of America. We can't allow looting and vandalism to define us. And I understand that looting can come from very different places. Some are looting to create chaos. Others loot as a result of the pain in their lives and the chaos in their communities. But I'm reminded of the saying that those who can't transform their pain transmit it. This is a great nation because people have come from all over the world to make it so. And we need to transform our pain, our frustration, and our disappointment into political action. In a democracy, that's our best hope for real change. Thank you. And I'll take your questions.
Do we have on the line?
All right, I can't hear very well. Can you put the speaker on or something for me?
Yep.
Could you begin again, please?
There have been protests for 10 years in Chicago dating back to the summit, McDonald's, and other causes. And we've never seen the kind of vandalism and things like took place last night. What do you think happened? Was Chicago Police Department ready for this? The tactical errors? What's your kind of the situation? It got out of hand. You had peaceful protests that made their point without involving in what went wrong.
Well, as I said in my remarks, I think that looting can come from several places. It can come from your own personal pain and the chaos in your community, or it can come from people whose intent is to create chaos. And I can't comment on what happened last night in that regard as to where the looters were coming from. As I said, my concern about vandalism and looting is not so much the property damage, although that's tremendous and regrettable, as it is the marginalization of the concerns of legitimate peaceful protesters about the way in which black and brown people in this country are treated generally and specifically by the police. That is, they are routinely murdered.
Tony, this is Greg Hanson Graves.
Yes? Okay, Greg.
Okay, good. I wanted, if you care to comment, given what you just said about you understand the anger, but it's counterproductive, it marginalizes. I wondered if you'd care to comment on a tweet I'm looking at from the Chicago Teachers Union, which, referring to the broken window, says none of it matters compared to the loss of human life. None of it.
No broken glass and no stolen item can compare to the loss of life. I guess I concur them in that respect. Although, as I said, it's my conviction that looting and vandalism hand on a silver platter those who are deaf to our criticisms of this country, provides them with fodder for their critique of those who nonviolently protest the racism and the discrimination in this country.
Is there a specific step that you would like to see the city or the state of the country now? You referenced political activism. Political activism toward what goal? What 2 or 3 things would you like to see actually happen as a result of that activism?
Well, the first and foremost thing I'd say is that we have to organize to elect a leader of this country who better reflects our democratic values. We have a president of the United States who's a white nationalist, and we need to do everything in our power to elect Joe Biden in November. That's a good beginning. We also need a Senate that's more reflective of the concerns and values of our country. So I would put the election of a new president and the election of a Democratic Senate high on those lists. And as I said, political action is our best hope for change, and so I hope that people will focus on voter registration and getting people out in November as one of the ways in which we can do our part to ensure that our country better reflects our convictions.
But if all that happens, what kinds of laws or policies, what specifically should change?
Well, the police officer involved in the murder of George Floyd had a number of complaints against him, basically for bad conduct, and apparently there were no actions taken against him. So we need to hold our police officers accountable for bad conduct. There's no reason why police officers should get away with murdering black and brown people. And I would point out that Jason Van Dyke may have been charged with murder, but he was the first police officer in 35 years to be charged with murder. And I don't know any black or brown person who believes that he's the only person in that 35 years, only police officer in that 35 years that murdered a black or brown man. All right, who else is on the line?
Vivian McCall, WBEZ. And speaking of misconduct, the mayor and police say that officers showed a lot of restraint and maintained a very professional attitude last night. But that does go contrary to what a lot of protesters are saying, in that police instigated several incidents last night, as we have seen in other U.S. cities. Do you
No, I'm sorry, I couldn't hear the rest of your question, but I have no knowledge, frankly, and I haven't been watching the TV coverage, so I can't speak to that. Are there other questions?
Are there other questions? Hello? Folks still on the line? Not hearing anything else. Not hearing anything else.
All right, is there anyone else on the line who has a question?
Sorry if I missed this before, but have you heard about some of the reports on the south side, south suburbs, reaction?
I just heard about it on crossing the plaza here, so I don't have any comment. As I said, I believe in civic engagement, the importance of civic engagement and the importance of working hard for political change. That's what I would encourage those who look for a better America to focus on. The need for democratic action to change our country. And looting and vandalism don't qualify as democratic actions to change our country.
It's obviously very early in the process, but is there even a preliminary estimate of the cost to taxpayers because of the looting, because of the vandalism, because of the damage?
I have no idea, and I wouldn't want to speculate.